My name is Nuna Almusawi, and my story is about how my father abused me physically, mentally, and for a good span of my childhood. The earliest memory that I have of any type of I was 6 and my dad was overseas a lot, and when he came back it would be like kind of inappropriate cuddling and touching in certain places that I didn't understand until like when my mom was gone. So he would only do that when she was gone, and it was just me and my sister, who's even younger than I am. When it started getting really bad was 2008, so I was 10, and from 10 forward it was a consistent. The first real vivid memory I have of anything was my mom went to the grocery store with my sister. She was pregnant at the time, and he told me, hey, don't tell your mom, we can't afford to go to the doctor. Let's go to the bedroom and I'm going to go and check you out. And I said, okay. He's like, but we can't tell mom this because it'll make her really sad and she's pregnant. We don't want her to lose the baby. I was like, okay. So we go to the bedroom and he tells me, take your pants off. And I'm like, okay. And he tells me to bend over the bed, and he kind of reaches into his drawer and grabs something that's like liquidy, and he said that it would hurt, but he had to be thorough, and then to just picture a happy place. And that's when he started to actually start physically touching me and try to put himself inside me. So him being like, just picture a happy place, he could see I was in pain, so that's why he was kind of telling me to do that. My only saving grace was, and this really sucks, is my mom ended up hurting her back at the grocery store, so we had to go rush and help them. And he said, just keep this between us. We cannot make this worse for her. She'd be more stressed. And I'm like, okay. After that, it would be like, my mom would work all the time, so she maybe got 2 hours of sleep a night, and then she'd be right back to working back in office. It was my job to put the baby to sleep. I was watching the kids. That was my job. I was basically second wife in this house, and I would sometimes do my hardest or try my hardest to make sure that my baby brother, being like a couple months old, wouldn't go to sleep so that I could stay there and watch him. And my sister was also watching the baby with me, and if they weren't asleep, he couldn't touch me. But he would get angry and angrier the longer that he waited, so I had to, otherwise it would be worse for me. He would come in and make sure that I was actually trying to put them to sleep, and then have me come in, lay down next to him on the couch, like spooning position. This is like the family living room, and that's when he would make me touch him. That's when he would make me take my stuff off and cover us in a blanket, so that if anybody ever came in, it would just look like he was holding me, because he held us a lot, and he kind of like conditioned us to think that this was like okay. So if somebody did come out and we stopped moving, no one would know the difference. My mom wouldn't question it. She'd be too tired. And he would do this consistently. It would be every single night. He did eventually go off overseas, so I had little breaks in between, but he was constantly like monitoring us. We weren't allowed to go to school. After 6th grade, I was pulled out of school and I was homeschooled. He would tell us that there were cameras everywhere, that he could see everything we were doing. We weren't allowed to use the phones. We weren't allowed to watch TV. We weren't allowed to go out. We weren't allowed to do anything. I was not allowed to have any form of security, and it was a way to make sure that we didn't have anyone to talk to. I couldn't go tell a classmate. I couldn't go tell a teacher. I couldn't go tell a doctor. There was only one time I can think that I went to the doctor, and it was for severe stress, and he made sure my mom was recording everything, taking pictures of everything, because he wasn't there and he didn't want me to say anything. I didn't have any outlet. I had nobody I could call, and the amount of times he would say that if we said anything, he would kill us and bury us in the backyard, because nobody would know. And he was right. Nobody would know. We weren't allowed to talk to any of our family. We did not have anybody we could go to, because we were afraid that if we even tried, he would find out and he would kill us. And he would come home drunk, and we would have to hide knives. And he noticed that we hid the knives because that's what he was going for. He would get angry, like, what, you think I'm going to do something? And then he would clean his gun in front of us and say, I could use this right now. Nobody would know you're on. Nobody would notice. this. So do not go against me. I only got my information from him. So it's crazy the stuff that he had said, because to me, he said that this was like a sacred thing that God was telling him to do, that he spoke to angels and that we had to keep this in our box and that he had to teach me what to do as a wife. As I got older, it became not so much about my health, but more so I'm trying to give you your wife duties. I'm trying to teach you how to be a wife. This is my job. That was basically his mindset. He thought he was doing what God was telling him to do. And if we brought up anything about him drinking, I would just get beat. I'm not gonna lie. It was not even just normal punishment. It's everybody lay down in a row. I'm going to grab my belt, and if anybody cries or makes a sound, I will beat you. And he did within an inch of our life multiple times. He beat my mother while she was pregnant. My mother had to stand in front of us to defend us multiple times because of his anger. Just like something being on the floor or one of like me making a noise upstairs. It was like walking on eggshells. But no matter how you tiptoed, it was explosive. It was always the worst possible ending. I did everything I could to make sure that he would not be angry. If we were counting pennies for rice, he was eating steak that night, and we had to give it to him. So we have 4 hungry kids in this house and our mom who's pregnant at times, and he's eating whatever he wants, because if it smells any type of way, he's throwing the food and breaking the dishes, and we had no money at the time. So I had to cook, make sure the house was immaculate, clean. I had to make sure everybody was asleep, to make sure he had a cup of tea by his table. I had to make sure his cigarettes were there. I had to make sure the remotes were lined up so that he could watch TV when he got home. When he came home, I had to take off his boots for him. I had to take off his socks. I had to give him a massage, and I had to sit there and watch him eat and keep him company and talk to him and make him feel wanted in the house, and not like I was scared and not like we were scared. And there were times where, even though that's what he wanted us to not be present when he got home, he would get mad that nobody greeted him at the door. If we heard the garage, we had to be at the door waiting for him, but it depended on the night. And if we made the wrong decision one night, that would just be all of us up till 3 a.m. getting punished. So there was no winning when it came to him. And to everybody else, he was this amazing person. We never felt like we could tell anybody, because in our culture and in our religion, he's looked up at. They look up to him. They call him a Sayyid. So they have this respect for him, and everybody respected his father. So everyone we knew would be on his side. There was one really bad night. This was in 2015, just before he got arrested. He came home and my brother had fell like off a chair, and that really set him off, to the point where our 2 baby brothers were sitting on the bed watching him beat the life out of my mother. She dislocated her jaw. I'm the oldest, but I have a brother that's just a year younger than me, and he gave him a black eye. He gave me a black eye, and I lost part of my hearing at the time because he hit so hard. My sister was pretending to be asleep on the couch, so she got away from it, but it got to a point where he was hitting so hard and our little brothers were crying too loud, where my brother just pushed him into a wall and created a hole. And that's when my dad was like, "What? You can't get rid of me." And then my mom was like, "Call the police." And he's like, "What are they going to do for you? Are they going to save you? You're still here. You're going to be mine. I'm just going to tell them that you're lying." And we didn't know what to do. So then he just walked off like nothing happened and passed out on the couch. That's when my sister came into the room, and me and my family all gathered on the bed. And we kind of just cried because we didn't really know. It only gets worse from here. And we were all kind of old enough to realize that, like, we're not escaping this. Everyone has a lot to say about my mother in this situation, but she had no legal custody over us. So there was no way for her to leave without taking us. Like, she had to take us, but she couldn't just leave because he would say that she was kidnapping him, and that's just the way the laws are. So she stayed to protect us, because even if she was getting hurt and the 2 boys that she had with him were getting hurt, at least she could protect us in the way that she could. We had no out. We didn't know what to do, and my mom didn't know the full extent of anything. My sister eventually picked up on some things, and she would help me by keeping my little baby brother awake at night, or like calling my name so that I would get out of that situation. And so after that night, he left, and we were trying to talk about what we could do. My mom's like, "Legally, we can't do anything." I had walked out with my sister for a little bit, and I was like, "Do you think we should tell Mom?" And she's like, "If that was your husband, would you want to know?" And it kind of hit me, and I was like, "Yeah." So I went and I told her. She's like, "I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm not saying I do believe you. Give me details." And the same stuff that was happening to me was happening to her, like word by word. the stuff that he was saying, the stuff that he was doing. And she was like, we need to leave. We had to plan everything. And my mom, she was able to reach out to her brother in New York and her mom, who she hadn't spoken to in years, and let them know everything that was going on, that we needed help. And we got in contact with CPS. She had to go to work, and he just came back from a trip, which doesn't normally happen. He never really left us in the house like that. After he came back from overseas, he was always with us. My mom got a call that CPS was headed to the house. The only thing is, he doesn't know what's going on, so if CPS is talking to him about it, they're just going to leave us there because they're just doing an interview. So my mom calls the house phone, and we're only allowed to answer if it's her number or his number. So I answered it immediately so he couldn't hear it ringing, and I said, hi, what's wrong, Mom? What's going on? And she's like, get dressed, pack the boys up, meet me outside. I'm almost there. We need to go now. And I'm like, okay. At the time, me, my sister, my family, we were very strongly practicing being Muslim, and we were covered head to toe. We were forced to be covered head to toe. I pack my baby brother's diaper bag. I put their clothes on. Some of us don't have shoes. We don't have our covers on. We're like half dressed, and my mom's in the driveway. She's like, forget everything, just come. So we get in the car and we leave. Our family had got us a hotel to stay at, and we met our uncle for the first time and her brother for the first time in years, and we're in contact with a detective at this point. The texts start flowing in from our dad saying, she's lying, come back home. We can talk about this. My mom hadn't even said anything to him about anything that happened. He knew what he did, and my mom was like, no, I'm not even going to answer. We had a detective. He helped us throughout the case. We went to this place called the Child Advocacy Center, and they pulled us in for individual interviews. My mom had made me write down everything on a notebook when I told her what happened. She's like, everything you remember, write it down. We'll hide it under your bed and we will take it with. And we did. One of the nights that something had happened to me, I had kept a pair of the underwear because it had a semen in it, and I didn't know how to clean it or what to do with it, because I know that like throwing it away, she would see it. So I had thrown it in one of my cupboards and I left it alone, but that was something I was able to bag up and keep with the notebook. I give them the notebook, they have everything, and they sit me in this room with a bear that has a camera in it. You can see that it has a camera in it. It's a very awkward situation, and they ask me all these questions. What did he do? How did it feel? Did it feel good? And these are questions that are really hard to answer because the body is the body, but you can't separate like, you know, your reactions to things versus like what's actually happening, you know? So we go through those interviews. It takes a whole day. We're there. We meet so many people that are amazing, that like are listening and that are validating our experience, because we were made to think that we were crazy. I was made to think that I was crazy because of the stuff that he was doing, because he was saying it was normal, but it wasn't. After that, he gets arrested. The detective calls us personally before he's pulling up to the house saying, hey, I'm about to go make this arrest. I want to let you know you guys are free. So they do, and he fights back and they get him, and he stays there until 2017, until, you know, that's when we have our trial. CSI went into the house to go get DNA samples of everything. When they put the black light on the couch, it lit up like a Christmas tree. And they were able to use the samples on the couch and my underwear to pinpoint dates, because they needed specific dates of when he was doing whatever to me. They could only get him for 2 dates, even though I had been going through this for years. And when we went to court, he didn't want a public trial, so he pled guilty so that it would be closed. The court would be closed. It could only be me, my family, anybody we wanted on our side. There's this biker group called Bikers Against Child. It's called BACA, and they went with us because that was going to be my first time seeing him in a couple of years, and it's to make sure that he doesn't try to intimidate the people that are on the stand. So they sat there with us. The judge was listening to everything, and he did not hide anything on his face, because my biological mother also came down to testify, and a few other women testified to his character on our behalf, to the that they had gone through and what he had put other people through. And he would try to make eye contact to intimidate me in ways, but then I just wouldn't look at him. And it was just looking at the judge or looking at the biker group or the ADA at the time. So I was trying really hard to just get everything out, because looking at him made it really hard. At the end of everything, the trial was like 2 or 3 days. We had like 3 days in court, and then we had impact statements that we could read out, and it was what we're doing now and just kind of what the last thing we want to say to him. He was angry. He did not like anything that was going on, and he was shaking his head, and he was just like, you know, like, this isn't true, this isn't that. And my dad tried like the last the last ditch effort of I don't want to be a monster anymore, this isn't who I am, you know, like I can just give me a chance, I can do better. And the judge was like, no, you're a monster. He gave him 2 20-year sentences consecutive, so they're 40 total. Outside of what he did to me, outside of what he did to my family, the amount of things that he's done to other women, to other people, to his family is just, it's ridiculous he was able to walk as long as he has been. We actually have a parole hearing coming up in April for him for his first 20 because he's eligible now. That doesn't mean he's going to get out. It just means that after he served the second sentence, he would be eligible. I'm not entirely sure how it works. He's not going to be able to get out, but if he does, he's getting deported. So he's not legally allowed to be here, but we have safety in knowing that he's either going to die really old in prison or that he's going to get deported the moment that he gets out. So I'm just preparing to see his face again for the parole hearing next year. We requested in person, and we have all of our friends and family and everybody that we've met are writing letters to make sure that, you know, like he can't get out. They're not going to want this man out. And we're going to make sure of that because we have flourished so beautifully without him here. And it's amazing to think that I actually have a life now that I could have never imagined that I would have had before. Like, I've had so many, he wanted to marry me off young. He wanted me to marry my cousin. He wanted to ship me to Iraq. He wanted to make sure I was never in school. He never wanted me to go to college. He didn't want me to get a job. These are all things I can do now, and I have been doing now. I have a stepmom and a biological mom. My youngest memories, I've always seen him hitting her, putting her hands on her. I just figured that's how that was. And it only got worse when we moved in with my stepmom. Recovering from the trauma, one of the first things that really helped was immediately getting enrolled back in school, because to me that solidified we have a future and we can be educated. I have made so many amazing and wonderful friends, and I have met so many wonderful people. Of course, therapy is also really good, but just confiding in somebody when you've been so isolated for so long was such an amazing feeling. Being able to build connections, and I have friends that I'm still friends with now, like to this day, that have been to the courts with us, that have seen him, that have been with us through this whole journey. I just think being able to go outside and communicate with people and walk out to somewhere besides a grocery store was the first step in healing. Seeing my mother smile and see her family for the first time, meeting people I didn't even know existed, it was very healing. Like, one of the first things they did was took us to the mall, got us our makeup done, and they took us to dinner, and it was a really beautiful experience. Things that I will never forget, because for the first time we felt safe. We weren't looking over our shoulder, and we were able to just talk as freely as we wanted. I'm doing great right now. I'm currently working in the medical field. I'm going to be going back to school next year to become an ultrasound tech. My sister has her bachelor's degree. She's doing great. She's working she has a degree in psychology, and she's going to go into forensics to work with kids that have been going through similar things. I travel a lot. I'm going to the Bahamas next year in January. I'm going to wear a bikini because I want to wear one, you know? I have a wonderful boyfriend. And another thing is, my dad was extremely racist. That's just point blank period. He was extremely racist. I am allowed to have any friends or partners that I want, and that is something that I'm also so happy about, because he would be seething right now. He lost a lawyer, multiple lawyers, because of his misogynistic comments and his racist comments. So he gets to sit there and do that, and I get to go do everything I've been dreaming of. I work in a clinic now, and I get to help people. And that's kind of like, that's my dream. I'm just grateful to be able to live like everybody else, even the normal mundane things. I have my own apartment. I never thought that was possible. What I would tell somebody that is in a situation or may have just left, it's not your fault. It never was. And you can take the steps to leave that situation in a very safe way. Plan it. Don't let them know. Your safety is more important. You can't wait it out. It's not going to get better. And to anybody that just got out of this kind of situation, I'm proud of you. And your life is immediately so much better. And I'm rooting for you, because it's only up from here. It really is only up from here.